Did you know that change is one of the biggest fears? We tend to have a lot of discomfort around change. We tend to really have a preference for things that have been around a while. There was a study done where they took two groups of people and they showed them the same painting. The first group was told that the painting was painted in 1905, and the second group was told that it was painted in 2005. 100-year difference. And the first group, hands down, preferred the painting over the second group. The first group thought the painting was aesthetically pleasing. They really liked the painting. And the second group rated it much, much lower. There's this thing about, I like things that have been here. And Tim Ferriss says, we'd rather be unhappy than uncertain. And that change certainly brings around uncertainty. And neuroscience backs this up, that uncertainty registers like an error, registers like a mistake. And we feel this urge to correct the error, to fix that mistake. We don't want to live in that place of the discomfort of the uncertainty and change. And this is why in Vegas, it's called loss aversion, why people who are in the hole already and have lost a bunch of money and they're still losing, it's why they keep gambling. Because at the end of the day, they don't want to finish on a loss. They don't want to just call it a loss. They're not willing to stop and call it a loss, as opposed to, let me just keep going and hopefully I'll get some kind of a win. And yet we know that change can be great. It can bring new opportunities, new jobs, new relationships, new friendships, new adventures. You can grow your family, a new home, all sorts of opportunities with change. It can be exciting and enriching and life enhancing in so many different ways. And we also know that change is a part of life. There's nothing that really doesn't change. Everything changes. All your circumstances change. I mean, the weather changes, the seasons change, children grow, plants grow, we age, our relationships shift. And it's like they say in certain climates, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. So let's sum it up. Change can be spectacular for us. And yet in general, we resist change. We know it's inevitable, and yet we resist it. And that resistance has all kinds of downsides. It has downsides. If we resist changes that are happening and something in our relationship or it impacts our relationship, it's not good for the relationship. Certainly being in a posture of resistance, not great for your health, not great for your finances, your career. Resisting change in general is not a great way to go. There's this famous idea that if you keep doing the same things, you keep getting the same results. And really, if you dig a little deeper and you think about change and the inevitability of change, what we know is that you actually, if you keep doing the same things, you don't keep getting the same results. Ultimately, those results degrade, those results downgrade. For example, I met a man who had almost died and he was in a coma for 3 months. They fully expected him to slip out of that coma and pass on. He miraculously did not. He came back, and it was a huge, huge wake-up call for him. And he said, I just knew I have to change my life. I have to stop hanging out with the people I'm hanging out with because we're going to the bars and there's a lot of alcohol, and my life is not going anywhere. It's just this stagnant life. There's no life to my life. And he made a decision that he was going to change all that. And as it turned out, a few months later, he took stock and he realized he hadn't changed anything. And he just went back to his same lifestyle, went back to his same people group. And they were living that lifestyle, so he didn't break out of it. And by the time I spoke with him, he said he was not back. There was no going back to normal. When he came out of the hospital and he had that epiphany, and then he didn't do anything about it, he didn't go back to normal. He was much worse off than he was before, because now he said to me, and now I know, if that wake-up call did not do it for me, if I did not change my life by almost dying, I mean, pretty much dying and then coming back, then I know I won't do anything. I don't have the power to do anything. I don't have the willpower to do anything. And he was extremely depressed. So he was much worse off than he was before. Or for us, we can think about as we age, Our bodies want different things from us. Our body wants different exercise. Our body wants some different nutrition. And if we keep doing the same things that we've always done, we're not going to keep getting the same results. We're going to start getting worse results than we used to get. Or in relationships, you think, well, we'll just keep on going with our relationships. Relationships were not meant to sit and be. Relationships were meant to grow and to deepen and mature. And if we are not actively involved in upping our relationship game with effort, then there are going to be consequences. There's really no way around it. If you want a happy, healthy life, then you got to have a different approach to change than avoidance or than resistance. So let's look at the 3 levels of the art of change mastery. First, the first level of the art of change mastery is acceptance. And when you don't accept, you have 3 things happen. Number 1, you're out of sync with reality because you're trying to hold on to something that you just can't. We know that change is a part of life. Change is this natural process. The aging and health and relationships and finances and business, everything changes. And so if you're resisting it, if you're not accepting it, then it's like you're trying to hold on, you're trying to hold back the tide, and it's impossible. Second, not only are you out of touch with reality, but now everything's going to get harder. You're expending effort and energy and maybe time. You're pushing against. You're in this stance of resistance and of pushing against. And that's your body's short-term mechanism. Your sympathetic nervous system jumps in there and gets ready to support you and to defend you. And it's this short-term stress response that was never meant for the long term. And if you keep it up, then the third level here of not accepting change is breakdown, because things are going to break down. Because if you keep firing that sympathetic nervous system, your body, it's like trying to run a 100-yard dash for a marathon and trying to keep up that pace. There will be breakdown. And so your physical health will break down, your mental health will take a toll because you're in that posture of resistance and not accepting. And your relationships, ultimately, those are gonna take a hit. And you'll at some point you get left behind because other people in your relationships, in your circle, other people are going on and you're not. But when you accept change, everything gets better. It's like something that was wrongly caged gets let out, and all that air you were holding on to, just gets released. And it is such a relief. That release is a relief. And you get peace in exchange for stress. There are health benefits. Your parasympathetic nervous system now gets to kick in, and what your body is craving, all the repair and the restoration, it's a relief for your body. Your sleep gets better, your energy improves, and your communication and your relationships get better. It's like in the pandemic, we immediately thought, there were so many challenging and devastating effects in the pandemic. And early on, those of us if you're trying to work and trying to keep in touch with people, you had to find a new way to work. And most people didn't know how to use Zoom, and people were trying to figure it out. And I fielded so many calls of people just frustrated and trying to figure out, how am I going to figure things out? How am I going to go on? How are we going to, nobody knows how to use this tool, or everyone's using it wrong. And ultimately, there was acceptance, and people figured things out, and the dust settled, and it was like people got into a rhythm and people were productive, and it was a complete relief. But acceptance had to be part of that. If you stay in resistance and then you don't adopt the tools, then again, the world goes on and you don't. So you're not going to get back to where you were. It's not about that. It's going forward to a new place of equilibrium. It's a new equilibrium. And there are other higher levels of the art of change mastery, but acceptance is absolutely number 1. And without accepting it, there's going to be nothing else. Acceptance is an extremely powerful and essential place to be. Second, what if I told you there's more to managing change than accepting it? Now, the common wisdom around managing change is just that: accept it. And accepting change can be really challenging and is very powerful. It's simply that there's more. There's a higher level of change mastery than just accepting it, and that is embracing it. Embracing change. Embracing change goes further than accepting, and it enables you to be more than just okay through change, and it enables you to actively benefit from, actively improve your circumstances, your life, your relationships, your career, your business, your finances, your whatever it is. It allows you to actively benefit from whatever the change is. And why? Because you're going to do more than just get your equilibrium back. You're going to get more. You're going to learn from it. You're going to get new ideas. You're going to grow more. You're going to use the change as a springboard. I coached a woman who worked for a small but elite firm, and it was a family-run firm by a very famous family. And tragically, the family died in a plane crash, and the company shut down. And of course, the person I was coaching went through grief and ultimately got to acceptance, and then realized, it was such a great firm and such a great role and a great job. And it wasn't her ultimate dream. And she realized that she'd been living with the golden handcuffs for years. And so she moved out of accepting and went into embracing it. And she ultimately moved out of state. She built her dream house. She met her dream mate and got married. And so leveraged the change, actively used the change to benefit from it and to drastically improve her life. So for you, I'd recommend 3 steps. First, that if there's a change, you ask yourself, okay, even though it's tumultuous, even though there's the uncertainty, putting that aside, what's good about this change? What could be good about this change? And finding the good. That is going to open up your thinking. Secondly, you're going to ask yourself, what could I do to leverage this change? How could I use this change? And go into brainstorming mode. And what are some different things that you could do? Just like my client, it was she thought about the different things that she could do, and ultimately she decided she wanted to move out of state. And so for you, it's what are the different things you could do to leverage and benefit from the change? And then the third is to make some decisions. Once you brainstormed those things that you could do, what will you do? What will you do to leverage and to benefit from and improve something in your life, your career, your health, your finances, to benefit from the change? Third, are you up for being a change master? Most people aren't. Most people really struggle with change. And just for starters, they struggle with accepting change. And if they do accept it, well, that's really good. Just being okay with the change. But there's more. There's embracing the change, which is taking it further and leveraging the change, using the change, actively benefiting from the change. And that is very powerful, using it to benefit your life and improve your life. But there's more, and not many people go to the next level of the art of change mastery, and that is creating change. Why would you want to? Why would you want to create change? Whatever happened to if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Something's working, don't change it. Well, because of the law of entropy, things will change and things will erode, and you got to get out in front of it. In your health, in your relationships, in your career, in your business, in your life, in your finances. Pete Carroll said the best always want to get better. And Tiger Woods, he first hit the golf scene, and then he started winning everything. And then all the magazines and all the news outlets started writing about him. And then they started writing about him. Every time you looked at a headline, it was Tiger Woods changes his swing. It wasn't that he started losing, so he changed his swing. He was always out in front of what's my next level of changing, improving, getting better at what I'm doing. And he did it over and over. If you create change, you're more in line with nature because change is natural. And if you resist change, you're going to get beaten up by change. If you accept change, then you get to level 1 of the art of change mastery and you say, okay, you know what? Change is, this change is, I'm going to accept it. I'm going to be okay with it. And that's a very good, it's a very powerful thing. And maybe you go to level two, which is embracing change and say, I am going to use this change. I'm going to learn from the change. I am going to leverage this change and use it to improve my life and to improve my career, to improve something. And the only thing is that those two levels, those two approaches, nature is leading the way. What about you leading the way? Partnering with nature to drive your performance and to drive your experience of life to a higher level. You choose to be out in front of change. And most people don't do this. Most people aren't taught to do this. You know, I was really lucky with my parents. They loved us and they worked really hard to create stability for us, but we were definitely the last people on the block to have an answering machine. And we were the last people in the neighborhood to have a VCR. And if you don't know what a VCR is, then you got to ask your parents. It doesn't matter, though, if you were taught to create change or not, you can do this. You can do this for yourself. This is the highest level of the art of change mastery. And it's a choice. It requires choice and it requires confidence. It demands vision and resilience and strength and agility and presence. And is it worth it? Years ago, I made a move across the country and I was creating change. There was nothing external that was calling me. There wasn't a job, there wasn't a relationship, there wasn't anything calling me across the country. I actually had a still small voice inside that was saying, this is something you need to do. And I listened to that voice and it tested my resilience. Oh, did it test that resilience in those first 6 months? But I followed it, and everything in my life ultimately to this day stems from that choice that I made and that creation of change that I made. It was an incredible, incredible experience. And it opened amazing doors for me and has continued to, and the cascade because of things that happened and people I met during that time. So all of these things came out of that: the jobs, the incredible world travel, the opportunities, the business, the friendship, the confidence. Creating change gives you your highest level of thriving, of influencing yourself and influencing your life and quenching your thirst for exploration to find out, what are you made of and how far can you go? When you move from the reactive to the proactive in your life, you take your life to a whole new level. So think about your relationship with change right now and ask yourself, am I resisting change? Things are changing all the time. And what do you do with that? Do you resist it? Do you avoid change? What potentially are the consequences in your life if you are doing that? And then ask yourself, where do I want to be on the 3 levels of the art of change mastery? And to what extent am I already accepting things in my life? What do I need to start, or the change that's happening, any change that's happened or is currently happening or that you anticipate happening? What more areas do you need to create acceptance in? What areas might you be ready to say, I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to really learn from this. I'm going to gain some energy. I'm going to gain some ideas. I'm going to take my life to the next level because of what I'm getting from this change. And then ask yourself, to what extent am I initiating change? Am I proactively creating change in my life to improve? Because without that, remember, things don't stay the same. That law of entropy, and things will erode. So what are you doing to actively keep up and improve things in your life? And ask yourself those questions. Ask yourself where you want to be. Do some brainstorming. What could be that next step? And then take it.